I think I'm, yes. Thank you, Jesse. Hello, everyone. My name is Jitesh Doshi. I assume you can hear me. And Jesse, you asked me to remind you to record, so I'm assuming you're recording. Cool. Okay. So, just wanted to say hello to everyone. This is a presentation about ReactJS and Drupal 8. So we'll talk about how to use Drupal 8 as the CMS, backend CMS to what they call headless sometimes. And then ReactJS as the front end to present that content, maybe even create some of that content. By the way, this presentation I gave earlier at Drupal GovCon this year. So this is a repeat for me at least, hopefully not for you. Again, I'm Jitesh Doshi with Spinspire. You can follow me and our company at Spinspire_com on Twitter. By the way, this entire presentation is available as a screencast video, which I will forward to Jessie and she can share with you guys. So this it's available on YouTube on Spinspire's channel. And the source code that goes with this presentation is on Bitbucket. Again, it's openly available. So if you just search for Spinspire on YouTube, you will find our channel, and on that you will see this ReactJS and Drupal 8 presentation with all the other relevant information. Okay, let's get started. All right, so why would you want to listen to this presentation is because Drupal is your favorite CMS. I assume that's true. And you want to write some AJAX applications or single page applications, and you want to write them with ReactJS because it's the hardest thing. But then, of course, there is always a new front-end framework these days. It was Angular, then it was React, then now it's Vue.js. So it keeps changing. But whatever you learn here will still be applicable on almost any JavaScript front-end framework because it's the backend. Drupal, in this case, is acting as the backend, which has to follow the same rules no matter which front-end framework you are using. Now, so let's talk about a little bit about us, Spinspire. Jesse already gave an intro. Spinspire is a company out of Jacksonville, and we work with some good clients like the IRS and others like Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And we have contributed some modules, etc., on Drupal.org. You can check out popular tags and PRLP. Let's keep going further. Let's get into the actual material. So this presentation, I'm sorry, but we are not going to teach anything in depth about ReactJS itself. It assumes that you already know your front-end framework, whichever that might be. If it is ReactJS, all the better. But what we are going to do is discuss the integration of ReactJS with Drupal. Okay, so even then, a little bit about ReactJS. It is in an MVC framework. This is only the view. React serves as only the view component of the MVC. The model and controller are not its focus, but it does allow it has other add-ons that provide things like model view controller, the full MVC. Now, its real key claim to fame is this virtual DOM. So DOM manipulation directly is slow. Most other frameworks have found out that when you try to manipulate DOM directly in reaction to user events, doing it in real time directly is slow. So they came up with a better idea, which is why don't we actually manipulate a virtual DOM, which is basically a shadow DOM, a copy of the DOM, not a copy, but a representative copy of the DOM, and modify that because the physical DOM doesn't get changed, therefore the page doesn't have to render itself again. And then when you're done modifying that virtual DOM, only at the very end, when all the computation has been performed, they then apply these deltas to the physical DOM, to the actual page that the user is looking at. And so that's what a virtual DOM does. Okay. makes it, it improves the performance of the physical DOM. All right, so there are a couple of things that you need to remember about React.js, that if you're going to do any serious programming in React.js, although technically it is possible to do it in pure JavaScript, the regular JavaScript, which is also known as ES5. In reality, though, you are not going to do that. You're probably going to use ES6, which is the next latest version of JavaScript, ECMAScript 6, also known as ES 2015. And most browsers do not support this version of JavaScript, and that's why you will probably have to transpile or convert ES6 into ES5. For that, you're going to use Webpack or possibly other tools. We are not going to go in depth on those things, although the sample project that I have accompanying this presentation uses Webpack, uses ES6, uses React. It's a working application, so you will have a good starting point. Okay. So before I go very far, let me just show you the sample application. So it's here on bitbucket.org/spinspire/d8-react. So this is the URL. Obviously, the URL will be in the presentation as well, which Jesse can provide. Okay. And in here, there is a very basic README. It links to the presentation, and then from there, it links to the YouTube video, the screencast. You can look at the source code, and it has a complete Drupal install, as you can see here. And then it also has the application, which is web/app. This application, this is the React.js app. It has Webpack config.js, that's the package.json for npm. So this is a complete React.js front-end application. And here is the Drupal backend. All right, let's go further. Let's see how you will get started. Once you download this, git clone this repository, you will, or even independent of this, you would basically want to have on your Drupal side, on your backend, you will want to have some certain modules. These are some of my favorite modules: Devel, Admin Pool, Toolbar, Path Auto, etc. But none of these have anything to do with REST or single page applications or Ajax. They're just development tools. Same way, Devel Generate, of course, I'm using only so that I can create some dummy content. Okay. While this third one, Drush -y and REST. So enabling the REST module. Keep in mind that REST module comes with core, so you don't have to download it. This is what makes the REST possible. So our goal is to make Drupal serve its content as a RESTful service. Now, the REST module itself is actually enough to serve REST, but then you won't be able to configure it using any UI. If you know what you're doing, you could write your own YAML file, which will serve the appropriate resources, I guess. Yeah, it'll serve the appropriate resources. But that is an advanced activity. Most of us, mere mortals, would require another module known as REST_UI. That is not in core, so you will have to download it. So download REST_UI and enable it. Generate some dummy content. And after that, you will have, let me see, a site like this. So this is my demo site. On this site, I'm obviously logged in right now, but if I were incognito and not logged in, then I would still see the site. On the right, what you see, so this is like any other Drupal site. There's nothing fantastic. It has some generated articles, etc. But on the right, I have added a block. It's not very nicely styled, but it's the functionality that matters. As you can see, the same nodes that you see rendered by Drupal front page are also rendered not fully rendered, but listed here. And this is a paginated list. You can actually go through the list of them. And this entire block has a ReactJS app running inside it. So this is my sample ReactJS app. This is one example where there's one way to use the app. Another way to use the same app is to take the Drupal URL, open a new tab, paste it, and then in front of the host name, just add the prefix app dot. So the way I have configured it such that app dot simply maps to the web root / app, which is where my index.html is. So this is where my ReactJS application is. So app.d8-react. blah 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 points to my ReactJS application, and there you see. So this is my ReactJS application, which is presenting the Drupal content. Let's before we get very far into this, let's just do a quick demo. So here, ReactJS is fetching, as you can see, paginated fetching content from Drupal. Now, if I go, it will also refresh content. If I go to the first page and I say, let's add a new node, new demo node. So this is the form. Again, I'm not showing you React code because you will have access to the code when you go to the repository. But let's say the new demo node 1, and here is line 1 and line 2. This is the body. So what we are going to do is, this is going to create a new article with this title and this body. And so before I do anything, let me just, this is not going to work because I'm not logged in. So I need to be logged in. But let's see, let's see if it fails. I'm going to inspect element area of, okay. Yeah, so let me just go to the network tab so that I can see what's going on. So here, as soon as I hit save, I will see an error. You see how it tried to post, basically tried to create a new node. It's trying to post to, I don't know if you can read this, but /entity/node. And it's getting a 403 because this user, which is anonymous user, doesn't have access to it. So let's minimize this. Let's try the same thing here in my logged in session. So right now I'm logged in as administrator. Open a new tab. I change the host to prefix it with app dot. Press enter. And now when I do the same thing, I think it will work better. So new demo node 2, and this is line 1 and line 2. Let me just clear this before I proceed. Okay, so I hit save, and as you can see, it performed a post, and that post had a 201, so success. And you also saw that it refreshed its own list, and it's showing that that node. If I click on this, it opens in a new tab, and it does have the same title, new demo node 2 and line 1 and line 2. Remember, this, what you're looking at is the Drupal site, while this is not a Drupal site. This is a ReactJS application. Okay, so but it's obviously interacting with Drupal to fetch its content and create content in it. You can also modify some content. If I just click on this node number 57, so the node is now loaded. If I change the title to modified, let's say, hit save, and as you can see in this list, it got updated, but that's not the only place where it got updated. If I go to my original front page and I refresh it, as you can see, even there, my new node is present, and this modified node is also present. Okay, so that's the quick demo. what are we doing? We are creating new nodes. We are updating existing nodes, and we are obviously fetching them. And finally, we can also delete nodes. So if I wanted to delete my new demo node 2, just hit delete. It obviously disappeared from this ReactJS application, but it also disappears from Drupal. Okay, so we are doing complete CRUD operations here. Now, let's talk about how we are doing it. Now, let me go back into the presentation mode here. Yes. So we looked at this setup. Setup was you enable REST, and then you will enable REST UI, and I'm going to enable REST UI. I already have it enabled, so that I can show you what kind of configuration we are doing. So if I go to extend, I will make sure that REST. Yes, so RESTful web services. This is the core module. It's enabled, and then REST UI, which is a contrib module, is also enabled. If I go expand this and go to configure link on REST UI, this is the main area where you get to choose what resources. So another way to arrive here would be configuration web services REST. This does not come from core. The core comes prepared to serve RESTful services, but it doesn't have a configuration UI. This simply adds a configuration UI, which is very, very useful given the sheer list. Look at the number of resources. Content, which is node, is enabled, but look at the list of disabled ones. Actions, you can do RESTful CRUD on actions. Base field override, I don't know what that is. Blocks, comments, comment types, contact forms, and so on. The list is pretty long, as you can see, taxonomy. Almost every imaginable entity is covered. So which means Drupal is fully prepared to handle headless requests. So all you have to do is enable these resources. In this simple example application, I am dealing with the most common use case, which is nodes. So here, so what I did was when I clicked, when node was disabled, obviously the first thing I did was click enable, and then I clicked hit edit. So when I click edit, it says, which methods do you want to enable? Get, post, delete, and patch. All of them I enabled. Get means to retrieve node or nodes. Post is to create a node. Delete is to delete node. And patch is to update nodes. Which formats do you want to retrieve and update them in? I guess JSON is the most useful one for single page applications, for all AJAX applications and JavaScript applications. Then authentication providers. So now this is very important. Let me show you what other authentication providers are available. There is another one called basic authentication, this HTTP basic authentication. I could check that one. If I check this, if I enable this module called HTTP basic authentication, this also comes with core. Then I will have a second choice among authentication providers, cookie and HTTP basic auth. Now, I am not using HTTP basic auth because I don't want the application, my AJAX application, my JavaScript application, ReactJS application, to be responsible for the full authentication UI, because it will have to provide an authentication UI, and so on and so forth. And of course, it will also have to do, it will have to handle the username and password that comes from the user. I don't want to do all that. What I have done instead is I have used a specific property of HTTP cookies. If you notice, my domain, the Drupal application is on a specific domain, and my ReactJS application is a subdomain of that domain. Whenever a cookie is set by an application that is on, say, let's say domain X, then all the subdomains of X, let's say y.x, or z.x, they can share all of the cookies that the parent created, this Drupal created basically, which means ReactJS can simply borrow the cookie because it is running on a subdomain of Drupal. It can borrow the cookie that comes from Drupal. And which cookie are we talking about? We are talking about the authentication cookie, the session cookie. If you see, the session cookie is this one. In any request, if I just reload this, I'm logged in as administrator. If I look at my edit request, HTTP request, it has a cookie. This cookie is what we are talking about, the session cookie. Here's the hashed session name, and here's the session value, session ID. Name of the session, session ID. This cookie is what tells Drupal. This is how the browser tells Drupal that you are logged in as admin. This is what binds you to the admin's logged in session. Now, if this cookie could somehow be shared with ReactJS, which is exactly what we are doing, then you are effectively, the ReactJS application is effectively running as administrator as far as Drupal is concerned, which is exactly what we are doing here. If I reload, and if you look at the request that is, remember the HTML assets are coming from app.Drupal, while the actual RESTful services are being rendered by Drupal itself. You see there is no app dot in this. The JavaScript code basically strips the app dot because it wants to talk to Drupal, not to ReactJS app. So when it does that, you will notice that in the request headers, it will include the, when it performs updates, it will include the authentication headers, which means the session cookie. So let me just show you demo node 2 and 1 and 2. Let me just clear this before I proceed. I hit save. There it is. It got created. And if you look at the post request, in the request headers, see the cookie, the session cookie is present. This is a request coming from app.Drupal subdomain to the Drupal application. As you can see, that's what the this is Drupal application. And because of this, I mean, effectively all the operations that I'm performing from this ReactJS app to Drupal are performed as the administrator. And now, of course, in this example, I used administrator, but you could be any logged in user. Or if you're not logged in, then you're anonymous, obviously. So how does all of this work? We enabled, oops, I keep doing this, my bad. We enabled the REST UI and we enabled this appropriate authentication scheme, in this case cookie, right? And once you do that, you can get a list of all nodes. For example, I had to create a view first of all. You can get any specific node. For example, let's see. I go to the front page, and this demo node 2. I hit edit. The URL of this node is node/82. But if you add !_format equal to JSON, as soon as you do that, because of the REST module being enabled, you get the same node in JSON format. So this is what your ReactJS application will be using. Now, if you wanted to get a list of nodes, like the front page shows, then it's not built in. You have to actually go to your list of views. As you might know, in Drupal 8, front page is just a view. So you go to the front page view, and then I added this new display called REST export. So I hit edit, and you would add REST export. This REST export will be present because you have enabled the REST module. But I don't have to do that. I have already added it. This one, REST node list. In the REST node list, I gave it a path of node/rest, and then you put the fields in there. Once you do all those things, you can then just go and visit node/rest. By the way, all of this, of course, will be available in the source code. So node/rest. So here's the list of first 10 nodes, and it has pagination enabled. So you can say page equal to 1, and you get a second page. You say page equal to 2, third page, and so on and so forth. So this is a paginated list. Now, this is the back end, and here's the front end, and it is using exactly that. If I show you on the network, if I hit refresh, see, it is doing exactly that. It's basically making a request to the Drupal/node/rest page number 0. And if I go to next page, here's page number 1, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's get back into the presentation. Let's see how we are doing with respect to time. We still have about 30 minutes. We will try to leave some time for questions. All right, so in your setup, I showed you that you have to enable the REST module, you have to enable some resources, you have to write a view if you want a listing in JSON, etc. But there is more to it than just that. There is you do have to, there is something known as Csrf token. Csrf stands for cross-site request forgery. And the reason why, one second. The reason why we have Csrf tokens is so that when your browser is sourcing its JavaScript from different sites, different sources, and the browser is logged into your Drupal site or any other site for that matter, right? We don't want these random JavaScript scripts basically to hijack your session, take your session and perform operations on your authenticated Drupal site or any other authenticated site. So that's why any JavaScript application needs to have this token called Csrf token. Now, the details of this you can probably read on the internet, but let's just talk about the practicals, which is Drupal gives you the Csrf token at a specific URL. And your application's job is to fetch that token and then supply that under this header Csrf token with all requests. With every request, it has to provide that. So let me just show you that request happening. So I just do a hard reload. And you see this request number 4 is token request. REST/rest/session/token. This is the path to it. That, you see, gives you a token. In fact, I can just copy this path, open a new tab, and that's this is where Drupal is issuing the token, and this is the token. Now, what do you do with this token? Your JavaScript should basically fetch this token. This token is available to anybody who wants it, including anonymous users. And this token should be included in all subsequent requests. For example, even the page number 0, you will see that the headers has, in the request header, you'll see Csrf token. Well, wait, it's not in here. I think it will be in, oh yeah, hold on. Yes, there it is, Csrf token. So without this token, Drupal will not respond to the request. Even if, and this has less to do with authentication. It has more to do with you being in this particular subdomain being allowed to access Drupal's RESTful services. Okay. Now, and this is same as the token that you got here. Okay. Now, so this is one thing. So you will have to write your Ajax application, ReactJS application in such a way that it fetches the token from this URL, right? And then sends it as Csrf token header with each request. All this, again, is in the source code, so you don't really have to memorize anything. Okay. The second thing I already talked about, key authentication. As long as you are logged in into Drupal, and this thing is a part of this thing can actually borrow the same cookie, and now you can your single authentication it's sort of like single sign-on, but not really. I mean, just because you signed into Drupal, now you're also all the other subdomain applications are also signed in. All right. Now, of course, nothing is easy when it comes to Ajax. So you have to do a little more configuration, which is you have to change your services.yaml, and you have to configure CORS. CORS is cross-origin resource sharing. Cross-origin resource sharing. This once again is another security measure, I guess. I won't be going into all the details of what CORS is and why is that required, but the practical aspect of it is that you have to tell Drupal that CORS is enabled, cross-origin resource sharing is enabled. That's remember because our Ajax application is running in app.blah blah blah as opposed to the Drupal domain. It's a subdomain. So therefore, these two applications are running technically in two different origins. So that's why cross-origin resource sharing. They have to enable CORS. They have to specify which headers are allowed, and the specific ones are Csrf token and content type. These two you do have to enable. I basically came to them through trial and error. Allowed methods, obviously you want to allow every method, so therefore all the get, post, patch, delete. And then allowed origin. Now you can make it star, but in production you should not make it star. Star basically means anybody, any other domain can access. But you don't really, it's okay in development, but in production you want to spell out the specific domain where your ReactJS application is running. So app.whatever mysite.com, where mysite.com is your Drupal site, and app.mysite.com is your ReactJS application. Finally, you have to specify supports credentials to true, because if you don't do that, then your session cookie cannot be shared. So once you do supports credentials true, session cookie from Drupal can be used by the ReactJS application. All right. So let me just show you very quickly where you would do this. You would do that here in, you would go to your website's default and look at your services.yaml. And if you see my services YAML, there it is. CORS enabled, the same stuff that I included in the slide. Okay. Again, this is available in the source code. All right. Now, how should you go about writing your application? Well, you can use this demo application as a starting point. Okay. Oh boy, once again I did this. And then once you have a Webpack based, so here I have Webpack running. I just run npm run dev. I could make changes to any of my. So this is my dev server running with hot reloading and everything, which means I could make changes to my index.html or JavaScript code or ReactJS code. All of that will get live reloaded in my browser. This works correctly when I run this locally, but for this demo, I am running this in one of my cloud servers, and there it doesn't run correctly. So I won't be able to show you live reloading, hot reloading, but locally it works very nicely. So I would suggest that you basically develop your product or your application standalone. The web directory is my doc root, my Drupal root, and in that I have a subdirectory called app, and in there I have the complete application starting with index.html, and it's easier to see this in the Bitbucket. Okay. So there it is. This is your web directory, and there's the app directory. Here's the index.html, which only has div ID app. This is the container. Again, if you have done ReactJS programming, then this would look very familiar. But my actual application is here, app.js, and it has, again, I cannot go over every line of this application. You do have the source code available to you, but here's my main app component, and at the very end, I inject the app component into the browser DOM. So get element by ID, the app element, the div, and then just insert the rest. Okay. All right. So inject the app into your div. Okay. So your development methodology, your workflow should be that you develop your application standalone, as I'm suggesting here. And when I say standalone, I mean in here, right? In its own domain, subdomain rather, right? And this is a pretty simple application, but yours can be as complicated as you want. Once you have done that, you inject that application into, if you can either keep it standalone the way you want, and that's fine. But if you want to integrate it back into Drupal, then you basically create a block. And here I have created a block. I've also shown in my source code how to inject this block. If you go to structure, block layout, and look for in here, if I look for ReactJS app. So this is in my secondary nav bar, I have injected the ReactJS app. It's a custom block. If I go to my custom block library, here's my ReactJS app. If I edit it, you will see in source, this is what it has. This is literally HTML HTML block that I created, and I pasted my main part of my index.html right in here. And the bundle.js also, which I'm borrowing from app/dist that was created by npm. Okay, so when I did npm run build, it created bundle.js, and I simply include that into my block. And the one important thing that I have to do is have a div with ID equal to app, and then I specify where is Drupal instance from where you have to borrow the data. Where is your backend? Basically, Drupal backend, and this data-Drupal-URL provides the backend, which basically gives you flexibility to put your Drupal anywhere. It doesn't have to be the parent domain. So this is how this block, when it gets rendered on the front end, it looks like this, because it's a very simple block, but it ends up containing all this complicated HTML simply through bundle.js. All of this is rendered by ReactJS, which is, the application is encapsulated in bundle.js. So this is what I would say your app development workflow should be. Again, there are some tips here. How would you go about it? You would install npm, Node Packet Manager, and you can use the Webpack dev server, which gives you hot reloading capabilities. Implement your ReactJS components, do your state management, and then I would suggest you use Axios for your AJAX request. You could use jQuery or plain Xhrf, but Xus works very well with ReactJS. And in the sample code that I've included in the application, you'll see that it does a good job of including the Csrf header, this header. Okay, all right. And the rest of it, I guess you should probably, you can go to the screencast video, and I'll just click on it very quickly just to show you that it's there. Right, so I'm not going to play the whole presentation, I just did it. But it's already pre-recorded, and I would say I probably am able to pack more information in less time in that screencast video. The source code is available here. Again, all this information will be made available to you by Drupal GovCon people. You can reach out to me, jitesh@spinspire.com, or I'm not very active on Twitter, but you can still follow @spinspire_com. You can go to our website, or you can visit our YouTube channel. At this point, I would say, what else would you like to see if there are any questions?
I'm going to go ahead and take a second to unmute everybody. We're a small enough group that I think that if you have a question, you can go ahead and just jump in with your question. If you don't want to say it out loud, you can go ahead and throw it in the chat, and Jitesh can review them there as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we have some hold music there.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody to get rid of that background music, and then if you've got something you'd like to ask, you can put it in the chat box, and I will unmute you.
All right, so Jesse, can you type something into the chat, because I don't know where the chat is. I'm not able to see any chat. So if you can just say hello in chat or something.
Yeah, sure. You've probably got it hidden behind your screen share. Let me go ahead.
Okay,
if you have the Zoom app open and you mouse over your screen, you should see a little chat bubble there as well. So
I'm not sure where the chat is. Let's see, chat bubble, chat bubble. Should I stop sharing my screen? Then I'll see it. Let me stop sharing. Okay, where's the chat? Oh yeah, I see the chat bubble now. Oh boy, lots of chats. Okay.
So the first couple of ones are more about, are we recording? So I took care of those. So it looks like the first question is from Mike Madison. You see that one?
I had a question about, so let me just read the question. The question says, I had a question about Csrf token. Does that token get regenerated each time the page loads, or is it static token? Good question. I think, in my opinion, I've seen it, in my experience rather, I've seen it fairly static, but then I'm not sure whether it changes, but every time I reload, it does remain the same. So if let me show you what I mean by that. So if oops, not this one. If I say React / rest session token, yeah. So this one, if I reload it a few times, it does not change. You see, but I just, even if I do hard reload, it does not change. So either it is associated with the session, or so which means as long as I log in, it will remain same, which I doubt. I don't think that is the case. Then it defeats the purpose of Csrf. So it has some timeout period, probably a few seconds or a minute or two. So yes, so it's not getting regenerated on every request, but it is also not there forever. So it has some certain lifetime. Okay, let's see. Next question is from Ken Zaleski, I guess. How do techniques described herein for React translate to AngularJS? Good question. Almost all of it is applicable to AngularJS. Obviously, your workflow will be different. Your framework is different. Yes, your workflow will be different. But as far as the cross-origin request sharing is concerned, cookie sharing is concerned, authentication is concerned, all the course configuration, etc., everything is the Csrf token. All of those things are applicable to AngularJS application as well. The second part of the question was, the advice Senate is interested in AngularJS right now, so migrating to ReactJS would be difficult. And yes, so that's right. Yeah, all of this will be applicable. So you don't have to move from Angular to React. You can use all this directly in Angular. All right. Do we have any other questions? Please feel free to put that in the chat. In the meanwhile, while we are waiting for more questions, let me once again, Jesse, do you know how we are going to share the links and everything with the audience?
Yeah, so the intent was for everybody that registered for the webinar, we will be following up with a link to the recording. The intent is to keep it in our YouTube channel and then just maintain a playlist there of webinars. But so we'll send that out to everybody. So both this one and then for the folks that registered but were unable to attend, we'll send out a notification and then put it in our Drupal for Gov YouTube playlist.
Okay, will they have access to the source code? I mean, basically the source code link out, as well as the presentation, if they can have those two in addition to the screencast.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. If you've got, if there's anything in addition to the screencast that you want us to share with folks, we can make that available as well.
Okay.
You just get it to myself.
Right. Sure.
Becca and I can.
You can put that in the yeah. You can put that in the notes of the screencast. All right. So yes. So that will. So the two things that I will be sharing with you will be, one is the source code. There's been the Bitbucket repository, and it's a public repository, so you just clone it. Anybody can do that. And the other thing that I would share is the presentation itself, which is this presentation here. It's a Google Doc. It's a Google Doc presentation, and it will be. I'll include the link to this in the notes. All right, and let's see if there are any other questions from anyone. Let's see. All right. So Dennis is thanking me, and thank you, Dennis, for your appreciation. All right.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and say thanks to everybody for attending. We really appreciate you taking the time out. This is a new webinar series that Drupal for Gov is spinning up. So please be on the lookout for announcements for the new topics. Our intent is to have one the third Thursday at 3 o'clock of every month. We will be skipping the month of December for the holidays, but we will be coming back in January. So if you follow Drupal for Gov on Twitter, our handle is @govdrupal. We will certainly be announcing there as well. And we will send out, when appropriate, some email notifications as well. So the follow-on email from this particular event will include more information on how to get connected with Drupal for Gov and all of the other things that we do, in addition to getting access to this material down the line. So thank you, Jitesh, for being our first speaker in our webinar series. We really appreciate you being here and taking the time to do this for us. If anybody has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the chat box open for the next 5 to 10 minutes or so, and we can, myself and Becca will stay online and do our best to answer any questions you guys might have about anything else in general. So Otherwise, everybody have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.